Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and today we're diving deep into something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
How to ask for help when you need it. And to help us figure all that out, we've got Sarah here. Sarah is our expert on human behavior and communication. So,
Hi.
Sarah, are you ready to turn all of our listeners into, master help seekers?
I think so. I think that's a great goal. It's interesting because I think a lot of research shows that people really do enjoy helping others.
Yeah.
But there's something about asking for help that just trips people up.
I know, it's true.
Yeah.
So what is it about asking for help that makes it so hard?
I think there are a lot of reasons why people feel uncomfortable asking for help. One is that we worry we're going to be rejected.
Oh, yeah.
What if the person says no to us?
Yeah.
And then we also have this kind of societal pressure to be self-sufficient, to have it all together.
Oh, yeah, like a strong, independent person.
Exactly. And, maybe some of your listeners have felt this too, but the reality is none of us really achieve anything totally on our own.
It's true. I'm thinking about when I was learning to play guitar, I spent months trying to teach myself. And, I kind of hit a wall and I finally just gave up and I took a few lessons from someone.
Yeah.
And I realized there are these very basic things that I was doing wrong that were really holding me back.
Yeah.
And I wish I hadn't spent so long just trying to do it on my own.
I think that's a great example. And it gets at what some researchers call the illusion of transparency.
Illusion of transparency. What's that?
So basically, we all kind of walk around assuming that other people can see our struggles and that our needs are obvious.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's usually not the case. People can't read our minds. So we have to actually say what we need.
We do.
Yeah, if we want to get help.
And then sometimes it's hard to even recognize when I need help.
Yeah.
And, it's like I don't realize I need help until I'm already, really deep into a problem.
That makes sense.
So how do we even know when it's time to ask for help?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful to think about some specific scenarios when asking for help is really important, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Okay, so like what kind of scenarios?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is burnout.
Burnout.
Yeah, and that can come from, work or your personal life, even caring for other people.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you're constantly feeling exhausted or like totally swamped by everything or just like over it,
Right.
That's a pretty big sign that you need to ask for some support.
Yeah, burnout is tough.
It is.
It's like, I don't know, hitting a wall mentally and emotionally.
Right.
And I think if you ignore it, it just gets worse and worse.
You're exactly right. It's really important to catch burnout early and to get support, whether that's from, your friends or family or a therapist or even your supervisor at work.
I think a lot of us try to just power through it.
Yeah.
Like just toughen up, you'll get through it.
Yeah.
But that's probably not the answer.
I don't think so. In fact, I think it's actually a sign of strength to say, hey, I'm struggling and I need some help.
Okay.
Think about it this way. If you were training for a marathon and you got a muscle cramp, would you just keep running and risk getting injured?
No.
Or would you stop and stretch and maybe ask for help?
Right. Yeah, I would stop and stretch. I wouldn't want to make it worse.
Exactly. And it's kind of the same for our, mental and emotional health.
Okay.
Like pushing through burnout can actually lead to bigger problems down the road.
So burnout is a big one.
Yeah.
What are some other times when we should be asking for help?
Well, another one is when you're facing a task that's just beyond your skill set.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you're assigned something at work that you've never done before.
Right.
Or you're trying to learn something new, like coding or a new language. And in those situations, there is absolutely no shame in asking for some guidance.
I think this is where a lot of us get hung up on pride.
Yeah.
It's like we don't want to look dumb.
Right.
So we try to figure it out on our own. But wouldn't it be better just to ask for help and then learn faster?
Absolutely. And think about all the benefits you could get from asking for help in these situations. You could learn new skills, build relationships with your colleagues, and even learn how to solve similar problems in the future.
So it's not about admitting defeat.
Right.
It's about, being smart and learning and growing.
Exactly.
Okay, so burnout and tasks that are beyond our abilities. What else?
Well, another big one is when you're experiencing major emotional distress.
Okay.
So that could be anything from a tough breakup or losing your job to, dealing with anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
And in those times, it's so important to reach out to your support network, whether that's your friends, your family, a therapist.
Yeah.
They can offer comfort and, a different perspective and some practical help when things are tough.
This one feels especially important to talk about because there's still a lot of stigma around mental health.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard to ask for help.
Right.
But I think if we keep it all bottled up inside, it can really hurt us.
It can.
You know what I'm noticing here is that all of these things are kind of connected. So, burnout can lead to emotional distress and struggling with something that's, beyond our ability can make us feel burnt out.
Right.
So it's all...
Yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to recognize when you need help early on so you can stop those dominoes from falling and, causing a bigger mess.
Yeah, and I think now what our listeners really want to know is...
how to ask for help.
Yeah, what are the secrets to asking for help in a way that actually gets us the help we need?
Right. So there are some key strategies to keep in mind, both before you ask and then when you're actually making the request.
Okay, so let's start with before we ask.
Okay.
What do we need to do?
So one of the most important things you can do is to demonstrate that you've already tried to solve the problem yourself.
So don't just go straight to asking for help.
Exactly. People are way more likely to want to help if they see that you've already put in some effort.
Right.
And that you're not just looking for a quick fix.
It shows that you respect their time.
Yeah, it does.
It's like if you showed up to a tutoring session and you hadn't even looked at the material.
Right. Nobody wants to feel like they're doing all the work.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, so before you ask for help, try to brainstorm some possible solutions, do some research, try a few different things, and then when you ask for help, you can say something like, I've been trying to figure this out. I've tried X, Y, and Z, but I'm still stuck.
Right.
And it just shows that you're being proactive.
Okay, so show that we've put in some effort. What else should we do before asking for help?
Well, another important step is to think carefully about who you're going to ask for help.
Okay.
So, you want to think about their expertise and also your relationship with them.
So how do we choose the right person?
Well, think about it this way. If you were having a computer problem, you wouldn't ask your hairdresser for help.
No.
You'd probably look for someone who knows about computers.
Right. And I probably wouldn't ask my boss for advice about my relationship.
Exactly. So it's all about matching the person's skills and knowledge to your specific need.
Okay.
And it also means thinking about your relationship with them. So, for personal problems, maybe a close friend or a family member is the best person to ask.
Right.
But for work problems, maybe a colleague or a mentor would be better.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you might even need to seek professional help, like a therapist or a financial advisor.
Okay, so step 1 is to show that we've put in some effort. Step 2 is to figure out who to ask.
Yes.
Now, how do we actually ask?
Yeah, so this is where communication is really important. And first of all, timing and the way you communicate matters.
Okay.
So try to choose a time when the person is likely to be receptive and they're not feeling rushed or stressed.
Right.
And then think about the best way to get in touch with them.
Okay.
For a really simple request, a text or an email might be fine. But for something that's more sensitive or complex, a face-to-face conversation is usually better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just default to email.
Right.
Because it feels less awkward.
Yeah.
But sometimes you really do need to have that conversation.
You do.
Okay, so we've got the right time, the right person.
Yeah.
What do we say?
Well, once you have their attention, be really specific about what you need.
Okay.
So don't just say, I need help with this project.
Right.
Explain exactly what you're struggling with and what kind of help you need.
So no vague requests.
No, the clearer you are about what you need, the more likely you are to get the right kind of help.
Okay, that makes sense.
So for example, instead of saying, I'm totally overwhelmed with this report.
Yeah.
You could say, I'm having trouble organizing the data for this report. Could you show me how you approach data analysis?
Right. Being specific lets them know exactly how to help. Okay, so we need to be specific. Are there like magic words that we could use?
Or aren't any magic words.
Okay.
But your tone and your language do matter. Be assertive, but also polite.
Okay.
So, avoid putting yourself down or being negative.
Right.
Instead of saying something like, I'm so stupid, I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
You could try saying, I'm a little stuck on this. Could you give me a hand?
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
It's not demanding, but it's also not putting yourself down.
It's confident.
Yeah.
And here's another tip. Try to frame it as a collaborative effort.
Okay.
So instead of just dumping the problem in the other person's lap, invite them to partner with you to find a solution.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we're a team.
Exactly. Like, hey, let's put our heads together and figure this out.
Right.
And that makes the other person feel more invested in your success.
Okay, and one more thing.
Yeah.
Don't apologize for asking for help.
Ugh, that's a big one.
I know, I do that all the time.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you, but...
Yeah, or I know this is a lot to ask, but...
Right, it's like we feel bad for needing help.
And it undermines your request.
Uh-huh.
Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Okay.
So own your need.
Own it.
Yeah, and just ask with confidence and gratitude.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think we need to change the way we think about asking for help. It's not a last resort.
Right.
It's a way to grow and build relationships.
Exactly. It's all about understanding that we all need support sometime and embracing that.
Sarah, this has been so helpful.
Yeah.
I feel like we've really broken down this idea of asking for help.
I think so.
And we've learned how to do it effectively. But there's one more thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
What happens after we get the help?
Yes. Expressing gratitude and giving back are so important for building strong relationships and making sure you'll have support in the future.
Okay, well, I want to learn more about that, but I think this is a good place to pause.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we'll be right back after a short break with more insights on how to ask for help when you need it.
So we've been talking about why it can be so hard to ask for help.
And we've learned some great strategies to make those requests more effective.
But what about after someone helps us?
Yeah.
How do we show our appreciation in a way that feels sincere and strengthens the relationship?
That's a great question. I know I've struggled with that sometimes.
Yeah.
So how do we express gratitude well?
Well, of course, a sincere thank you is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
But I think you can make it even more meaningful by acknowledging the impact their help had.
So instead of you saying thanks for the help with that report,
Right.
I could say something like, thanks so much for showing me how to analyze the data. Now I feel so much more confident about writing reports.
Exactly. That kind of feedback not only shows that you really appreciate their help, but it also helps them understand how their actions made a difference.
Right. So we're kind of closing the loop and letting them know that their effort was worthwhile.
Yes. And that can actually reinforce their helpful behavior.
Okay. So what are some other ways to show our appreciation?
Well, public praise can be really powerful.
Okay.
If someone goes above and beyond to help you, acknowledge that in front of other people, it makes them feel good.
Right.
But it also sets a positive example for the whole group.
It creates a culture of appreciation.
Exactly. And then there's one more important piece of expressing gratitude.
Okay, what's that?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
The idea of giving back or returning the favor.
Right, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah, but it's important to approach reciprocity with the right mindset.
Oh,
It shouldn't feel transactional, like you're keeping score or something. Instead, think of it as an ongoing cycle of support and generosity.
So it's less about keeping track of favors and more about just being helpful to others.
Exactly.
Knowing that they'll be there for us when we need them.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
This whole conversation reminds me of some research I read recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about the science of generosity.
The science of generosity, tell me more.
So it turns out that when we help other people, our brains actually release endorphins.
Endorphins.
Those feel-good chemicals.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, the ones associated with pleasure and reward.
So being helpful makes us feel good.
It does on a neurological level.
Wow, so helping others doesn't just benefit the person who's receiving the help.
Right.
It also makes the helper feel good.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
I love that.
And this is why it's so important to get over our fear of asking for help. Because when we ask for help, we're not just getting our needs met, we're also giving someone else the chance to experience those positive feelings.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. It's like we're completing this cycle. By asking for help, we're allowing someone else to feel the joy of giving.
Exactly.
And then by showing gratitude and giving back,
we're
creating a more supportive world.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we all thrive when we support each other.
I love that.
And Mike, I think this gets to the heart of what makes asking for help so powerful.
What is it?
It's this: when we ask for help authentically, and with good intentions, you can actually lead to stronger relationships, deeper trust, and a more compassionate world.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's not just about getting a task done or solving a problem.
Right.
It's about connecting with other people on a deeper level.
And recognizing that we're all human.
Yeah.
We all need help sometimes.
Sarah, this has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
We've learned so much about asking for help.
Yeah, we've really demystified it.
And I think our listeners are going to walk away from this episode feeling more confident about asking for help.
I hope so.
And seeing it as a key to greater fulfillment in their lives.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with some final thoughts on how to put all of this into action. We're back, and we've been talking all about how to ask for help and why it's so important.
We've learned that it's not a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it can actually help us build stronger relationships, achieve more, and create a more compassionate world.
But now comes the hard part, putting all of this into practice.
Yeah, so what's one thing our listeners can do right now to start feeling more comfortable asking for help?
Well, I would say start small.
Okay.
Think of one area in your life where you could use a little help, but you've been hesitant to reach out.
Okay, so a low-stakes situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the benefits outweigh the fear.
Right.
Okay, so what do we do once we've identified that situation?
Well, just remember all those strategies we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Show that you've put in some effort. Choose the right person to ask.
Yep.
Be super clear about what you need.
Be specific.
Yes. And most importantly, try to frame it as a team effort.
Okay, like a collaboration.
Exactly. So instead of saying, can you fix this for me?
Right.
You could say something like, hey, I'm stuck on this. Would you mind brainstorming some ideas with me?
I like that.
Yeah, it's much more likely to get a positive response.
And you know what? The more we practice asking for help, the easier we'll become.
It really will. It's like exercising a muscle.
Right. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly.
I think we need to shift our whole mindset around asking for help.
I agree.
Instead of seeing it as this last resort, we can view it as a way to learn and grow and build relationships.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that we're all in this together and that asking for help is a sign of wisdom, not weakness.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure, Mike.
This deep dive has been incredibly valuable for our listeners.
I hope so. And remember, everyone, we all have the power to create a more supportive and caring world. And it all starts with a simple question.
What's that?
Can you help me?
And on that note, we want to hear from you, our amazing listeners. What's one area in your life where you could use a little help right now?
Yeah, tell us in the comments below.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more deep dives into all sorts of helpful topics.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.